Hey everyone. If you think it's too late to garden, think again. I'm going to show you everything that I'm planting in August, from root vegetables to leafy greens, for a fall harvest and to get a jump start on spring. Let's grow. So I'm planting 3 varieties of beets. Beets are a root vegetable and they grow under the soil. So I'm working the soil to a depth of about 6 to 8 inches. You want to make sure that beets have enough room to form a nice big root. I'm also working in some compost to give them a good head start. I'm going to form these shallow trenches. Beets like to be planted about a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch deep. Now, I recommend soaking your beets for a minimum of 12 hours. These have been soaked for 24. Don't stress too much about how you space out the beets because you can come back later and thin them out based on your needs. I'm going to thin these to about 3 to 4 inches, but if you were growing them for their greens, you can actually space them to about 2 inches. I'm going to cover them back up with soil, then I'm going to tamp it down and water them, and just make sure you keep them moist through germination. So I'm planting 4 varieties of carrots, but I am going to stagger these plantings over the next several weeks. So like beets, these are a root vegetable. You want to make sure that you're working that soil to the depth of whatever the particular carrot seed is, and work in some compost as well. Now, carrots don't like to be covered in soil, so this is a very shallow trench and I am seeding them heavily. I will come back in and thin them till about 2 to 3 inches in between each carrot because you want to make sure they have enough room. And now I'm just lightly pressing them into the soil. Now I'm going to sprinkle vermiculite over the top. Vermiculite will help keep the soil moist, which is incredibly important for the germination of carrots. And it is a light covering for them because I've only just pressed them into the soil. It will keep them covered, but it will allow a minimal amount of light in, which is actually beneficial when you're trying to germinate carrots. Rutabaga is another root vegetable. I tilled the soil to about 10 inches deep because I want to give them an opportunity to develop a really nice large root bulb. Now I'm going to plant these about a 1/4 inch deep, about 8 inches apart, in rows that are about a foot apart. Once you've gotten in all your seeds, you're just going to cover them back up with soil, and you're going to make sure that they're watered well. And just like all the other seeds, you're just going to want to make sure that you're keeping this moist throughout the germination phase. I'm planting 5 varieties of kale. I'm forming a shallow trench here and I'm going to plant them about a 1/4 inch deep. Now I've just mixed all of my kale seeds together. Now the reason I'm doing that is because I'm going to grow my kale for baby kale as opposed to growing like a giant kale plant. And I'm doing it because if I can harvest the kale leaves when they're smaller, there's less chance of them being destroyed by pests. So once I've sown these seeds heavily, I will thin them to about 2 inches apart, just tamp them down and give them a good water. Now these peas I harvested from last year's pea crop and just stored them in a seed envelope. I'm going to plant these an inch deep and 2 inches apart. Peas fix nitrogen into the soil, so I'm not adding any additional amendments like compost or worm castings because I don't want to add extra nitrogen. That would be detrimental to the overall health of the pea plant. Now I've planted these up against the wall of this raised bed, so that'll offer the peas some support. Now I'm also going to show you how to plant these in a square foot. The recommendation is typically about 8 per square foot. I'm planting 9. Everything else is about the same. The only thing that you need to do is you do need to offer some support. So I use some sticks that I have around the yard, and that'll make sure that they stay upright and will give them some good air circulation. Once you get all the peas in, you just want to push the soil back over them and give them a good watering. And just like all the seeds that you're planting, you want to make sure that they stay moist through their germination phase. This is cilantro that I grew this summer and it went to seed. So I'm just going to mimic what happens naturally in the garden. When cilantro does go to seed, it typically just drops its seeds in the soil, and then the following year, I end up with cilantro plants in early spring. This is parsley that I harvested this year, and check out my parsley video. And I'm gonna do the same thing with the parsley. This is another herb that when it grows, it will just drop its seeds in the soil. And then the following year, I'll end up with a brand new parsley plant. Now, parsley is a biennial, so if you don't pull the parsley, it will flower in the second year. Now I'm going to grow fenugreek and chervil. Now, both of these like cooler temperatures. They don't like to be planted in full sun or in the heat of summer. Chervil is a more delicate version of parsley, and it's typically used in French cuisine. I'm just going to sprinkle this on top, and I'm going to give it a light dusting of soil. Fenugreek is a spice that's primarily used in Indian cuisine. This one I'm going to plant about a 1/4 inch deep, and I'm also going to just cover this back up with soil, tamp it down, and I'm going to give this a good watering. Lavender is a perennial. It does not like to be sown deeply. It actually likes to be surface sowed. Now I have this bed that I'm going to plant it in, and the reason why is because I have all of these strawberries that I rooted. Check out my strawberry video from the runners of my existing strawberry plants, and strawberry and lavender make great companion plants. So just sprinkle some seeds on top of the soil, press them lightly in, and I'm actually going to sprinkle a little bit of vermiculite over the top to keep them moist and to just give them a very, very light covering. Now, lemon balm typically likes to be grown in the ground. It does get very large. It is also another perennial. However, when you grow it in a large enough pot, you can actually space these about 8 inches apart, which is what I'm doing here. And I'm just putting a few seeds in each hole. I'm going to cover them back up, and I'm going to give it a good watering. Now that's everything that I'm planting in August: leafy greens, root vegetables, herbs. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe.